council meeting for December the 8th. We believe that we have a quorum present, but let's, for those who are obviously the people that are in the room, but let's ask Ben to give us a roll call for those who are appearing virtually.
Thank you, members. Appearing virtually, I'll call your name by member agency. Please unmute and indicate if you are present. Mayor Hermosillo.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Carlott.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Pereira.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor LaVault.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Orsborn.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Schoaf. Supervisor Hickman.
Mayor Schoaf is present.
Thank you. And is there anyone that I missed? Thank you. We have quorum.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm pleased to call this meeting to order with a quorum present. This is a significant day for several reasons. This is the first time we have ever devoted an entire regional council meeting to the topic of homelessness. This illustrates the importance of strengthening our regional response to this difficult issue. Today is also significant as we consider what action we're going to take as a region to address homelessness. This is the first time that we've rallied together around a combined, uniform, shared regional plan. A tremendous amount of work has brought us to this point, and yet today it is just the beginning, really. This is the starting point of working regionally to intensively respond to the regional issues of homelessness. Thank you again for your partnership that has made today possible, and I look forward to our discussion today and to what we can achieve together going forward. For those who are participating in this meeting via Zoom, please remember to unmute your device before speaking and mute when you are not speaking to create a positive experience for all who are attending this meeting. Also, remember that the chat function is disabled since the public cannot see the chat communications. Additionally, for those in the room today, please be aware that your microphone may be picking up sidebar conversations. These conversations might not be heard in the room, but they may be broadcast. Phone participants should use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise their hands. Our first item on our agenda is a call to the audience. Members of the public were asked to submit written comments relating to this meeting through the MAG website. Comments may be sent at any time leading up to the meeting, but must be received at least 1 hour prior to the posted start time for the meeting. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. MAG staff, have we received any public comments? And if so, please read them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the MAG Regional Council. We received 2 public comments today. I will begin comment. Our first public comment, is from Myron Hams, a resident of Paradise Valley. I will begin comment. I am in support of Pathways Home, a regional homeless action plan for local and tribal governments. Homelessness in our communities continues to grow, and by working together per this plan, we can help develop more affordable housing options for those in need. End comment. Our second public comment is from Tracy Swearingen, a resident of Phoenix. I will begin comment. I fully support the Pathways Home, a regional homelessness action plan for local and tribal governments. The collaborative discussion and efforts are the only way to address and end homelessness. End comment. This concludes public comment.
Thank you, Ben. The next item on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Item 3A is on the consent agenda. Does any member of the Regional Council have any questions or request a presentation on this item? Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion.
Thank you, Mayor Weiss. Is there a second? Thank you, Mayor Ortega. We'll do a voice vote for those in the room, and then we'll do a roll call vote for those who are participating via Zoom. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Thank you. I will now do a virtual count for those that are online.
Thank you, members of the MAG Regional Council. I will go down the list of names by member agency. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Mayor Hermosillo.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Carlott.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Pereira.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor LaVault.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Orsborn.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Schoaf.
Aye.
Thank you. Supervisor Hickman. Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item 4 on our agenda is resources to support the regional response to homelessness. We're fortunate to welcome 3 important community partners to our meeting today. These leaders represent different sectors and each brings different resources to the table. All are dedicated to supporting these regional efforts. We thank Director Tom Simplot with the Arizona Department of Housing, Director Jamie Snyder with Access, and President and CEO Suzanne Feaster with the Vitalist Health Foundation for joining us today. Amy St. Peter with MAG will moderate our discussion. Amy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the MAG Regional Council. We are very excited to be having this conversation with you today. We're also very excited to be able to welcome these 3 leaders from our community to join us. They represent trusted partners who have provided very considerable amounts of help and support to these efforts. And we want to thank you for all of your support and for your leadership on this very important issue. There are many partners throughout the region who are firmly dedicated to supporting the success of these regional efforts. They bring with them a wealth of different kinds of resources, technical assistance, and connections. Our 3 speakers today represent significant personal expertise as well as significant resources within their own agencies and very important connections that they have cultivated throughout the entire region. And so we're excited to have this conversation with you. We do hope that you'll join in within this conversation with your questions, your ideas, your comments. Please do feel free to jump in at any point. We do have a few questions to get the conversation started. I'll pose a question to all of our panelists. They'll each respond in turn, beginning with Director Tom Simplot. Director Simplot, can you please talk about how the Arizona Department of Housing can support these regional efforts, in particular talking about any viable funding sources, partnerships, opportunities, or in-kind assistance such as data as well as technical assistance? Director Simplot, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amy. And before I respond to that, I just want to say thank you to everybody here in this room and on the Zoom call. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your commitment and passion to the homeless and housing issue. And thank you, by the way, for sending us your team of experts. Amy and her team have been phenomenal in all of this. And let me just start by saying that because of the hard work that you all have been doing over the past 18 months, it has made our job so much easier because we've been able to be informed from what you have put together to allow us to now move on to the next steps. And so with regard to the actual question itself, how are we going to use what Pathways Home has provided for us? Well, we've been tasked at the Department of Housing to create a statewide strategic plan for homelessness to housing. But we can't do that without what you have done already. And so the template you have put together, the work you have put together have been instrumental in helping us initiate this process. We just initiated our process about 6 weeks ago using, again, as a template, what you have put together with all of your work with the stakeholders throughout the entire metropolitan region. So over the course of the next quarter, we will be reaching out to different associations of government to collect the data that they have collected, weaving all of this together so that at the end of this process, before the end of the first quarter, we will have a better idea about where the gaps are statewide, whether those gaps are geographic or with regard to services or finances. But it's going to come from you and from our colleagues statewide so that we have a better idea of what we know and what we don't know. That in turn will then help us as we strategize and leverage the ARPA funds in particular that are flowing into the state. We have an incredible opportunity, first time in our lifetimes, to be able to focus so intently on housing. And please know that when I say housing, especially in the context of our homeless populations, that involves our healthcare services as well. And that's why I'm so glad that Director Snyder is here with us today. Our agencies have been meeting regularly over the course of the past 7 months, along with stakeholders, including homeless providers and experts, housing providers, developers, and experts, and healthcare providers and experts. So the private Medicaid and access providers have been at the table talking about the homeless situation and how we can be better informed about moving forward with our resources, as well as, of course, our sister agencies, Access, DES, DOC, Department of Veterans Services, and the Governor's Office of Youth, Faith, and Family. All of this comes together to create a better system moving forward. And we couldn't have done it without you, and we can't do it without you, and we sure cannot do it without Vitalist and Access and all of our partners being at the table. So going back to the ARPA dollars, what does that mean? We have a lot of temporary federal dollars flowing into the state. It is our job to, again, leverage those dollars and be strategic about how we spend those dollars, because we know we're not going to have those dollars for very long. In the scheme of things, 5 years out, we may not have much of those dollars left to utilize. So we want to focus our resources in the immediacy, looking to our partners and hoping that our state and local private and public partners will conserve their resources so that we can return to them when those needs arise in 5 years as these temporary federal dollars go away and are being utilized. So that was a lot, but that was a big question. And so with that, I'll turn it back to you, Amy.
Thank you very much, Director. So Director Snyder, it used to be that healthcare wasn't always at the table when talking about homelessness, but increasingly we are seeing housing as a social determinant of health. So Director Snyder, can you please share with us how Access is involved in addressing homelessness and what resources you bring to the table as well, please?
Thanks so much, Amy. It's such a pleasure to be here this afternoon. As we like to say at Access, housing is healthcare. To your very point, Amy, we find that we're able to make more of an impact when we stabilize individuals that we serve in housing than perhaps we're able to make with any clinical intervention we can offer. And I'll just give you an example. We pulled some data for 2019, and for those individuals that we were able to stabilize in housing using braided funding sources, we saw a 31% reduction in ED visits, a 44% reduction in inpatient admissions, and a savings of nearly $5,500 per member per month, which is outstanding in our world. And I think you can probably agree that it makes sense for agencies like Access to be doing this type of work. And we're so thrilled to be able to partner with you. I want to echo the sentiments of Director Simplot. It really does take a village when it comes to this work because as a Medicaid agency, we are prohibited from funding room and board outside of individuals living in institutional settings. And so it takes work with the Department of Housing, with the Department of Economic Security, Department of Corrections, Department of Health Services, and work with organizations such as MAG, as well as private sector partners such as the Vitalist Health Foundation. And so we're really pleased to be here. Just a little bit of background in response to your question. We believe that about 70 to 80% of homeless individuals are already enrolled with Medicaid, and many more could enroll. So we're doing a lot of work to outreach more effectively to homeless populations to ensure that we enroll them if in fact they're eligible. But a couple of things that we're currently doing where I think there are areas of synergy with the work that you're doing under the Pathways Home Plan. We currently receive about $30 million each year from the state legislature to provide rental assistance or rental subsidies to individuals that we serve. And that's why we've been able to actually measure the impact of our work in the housing arena, because we do a lot of work. I think we're unique in the country in terms of the work that we do around housing and homelessness. But probably most importantly are our wraparound services that we offer, really pre and post tenancy supports to individuals that are seeking housing, that may need to live in a bridge type setting before transitioning to permanent supportive housing. So we're able to stabilize them clinically in that setting so that they can be successful long-term in an independent living setting. So that's what we do today. But what I'm even more excited about is what we're planning to do in the future. We have a request into our federal regulator, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, to do some really unique things with Medicaid dollars. including providing and reimbursing for outreach services. We know that outreach and engagement is really the key to ensuring that homeless individuals are ultimately able to access services and support, and again, transition successfully and stabilize in permanent supportive housing. Community transition services, which can pay for things like first month's rent, basic furnishings when an individual transitions into permanent supportive housing. That's a service that we currently only offer to our long-term care population. We want to be able to offer that to a broader population of individuals. Home modifications. We know that many individuals beyond our long-term care population, again, need basic home modifications in order to stabilize in housing. And that's something we're asking for the ability to reimburse for under our request to CMS. And then in-reach services. We currently do a tremendous amount of work in coordinating with the Department of Corrections and jails in terms of coordinating care for individuals before they leave that correctional environment so that they can be successful in independent living settings long-term. But we don't have the ability to reimburse for those services. So we're asking CMS for permission to be able to reimburse for services such as case management prior to an individual's departure from a correctional environment. So a lot of really exciting work on the horizon, but I'm going to echo again the sentiments of Director Simplot to say we can't do this alone. And so we're absolutely thrilled to see that you're focusing a tremendous amount of energy and resources on this effort as well. We do feel like there is a lot of support really statewide under the governor's office, GOYFF, as Director Simplot mentioned, as well as involved. And this is the time to capitalize on some of those additional resources that are coming into the state and make sure that we're investing them in a way that's going to be meaningful long-term, so we can ensure that more members of our population and individuals outside of Medicaid are able to successfully stabilize in permanent supportive housing.
Thank you so much, Director. It is really impressive to see the greater impact that we can have when we are working together like that. For example, I know that when Mercy Care was partnering with the City of Phoenix was providing the housing subsidy, Mercy Care was providing the service subsidy, and as a result, they're able to assist 350 more people than they had originally planned because of that partnership. So these collaborations do have a direct impact, not just on people's lives, but also on that bottom line, all of which helps us to be able to do more into the future. And so as we're expanding our circle of support then for these efforts, it's important to work with a variety of different kinds of partners, because homelessness wasn't created by any one sector, nor can it be solved by any one sector. And so when we look to local foundations, they often play a really pivotal role in helping to make those connections across disciplines, and also at times being able to provide assistance, whether it's through gap funding or through technical assistance and support. So we have President and CEO Suzanne Fieser with us with the Vilas Health Foundation. They've been meeting with us on a weekly basis for about 14 months to bring you this plan. And so we've asked Ms. Fieser to join us today and to talk a little bit, if you will please, about how the Vilas Health Foundation can help to implement this plan pending regional council action today, please.
Thank you, Amy. And can I just tell the MAG Regional Council how wonderful your MAG staff is? They have truly been exceptional, and I can't brag about them enough about how wonderful they have been to work with. Vitalist Health Foundation is a public charity that works statewide to help build healthy communities. But the funder community in Arizona has been involved in helping with homelessness issues for, well, probably decades. Groups like the Virginia G. Piper Charitable Trust, the Pulliam Foundation, Arizona Community Foundation, the Garcia Family Foundation, we have all been working together. So it's far beyond Vitalist to really help address homelessness issues. And we have looked hard to get collaboration and to, again, bring people together. There were 18 funders this past year that stood up the azevictionhelp.org platform to try and make sure that people got information and got resources as you cities were providing rental assistance as well as the state. So we've provided, as Vitalist, individual support and technical assistance to the Regional Coalition for Homelessness, but we've also been and growing deeply involved in looking at attainable housing through schools and faith groups, again, working very closely with Department of Housing and Access. And I can't tell you how talented these two directors are that you have today and how extraordinarily well they're working together. So I think the key message we want to communicate is there are lots of groups, including the business community. I work and co-chair the Committee for Greater Phoenix Leadership on Housing and Homelessness, and I'm involved with the Urban Land Institute, and all of those business community groups and developers want to work together to help the MAG Regional Council implement this important action plan.
Thank you very much, Ms. Feaster. And we are working with all three of these partners and many more to actually develop a funding tool. We are developing this with assistance here from within MAG. And most recently, Director Simplot convened a meeting of funders. 30 different people showed up to that meeting, and they represent local foundations, public sector agencies, a whole wide range of different kinds of funders, including local and tribal governments. And so we talked in that meeting, how can we work together better? How can we use data to our advantage in this conversation? And so right now we're starting to develop a tool that will create an inventory of all of the different kinds of funding sources. It will have a search function, and we're talking about the functionality that can be used within that, even looking towards how do we coordinate among funders in terms of the application process on outcome measures so we can analyze data across funding sources, across programs, so we have a better understanding of the true impact. And so while the collaborations among these different funders help us to arrive at this point today, we're looking forward to continuing and deepening these collaborations to move us forward tomorrow. And so we thank you for your support. I'd like to thank Director Simplot, Director Snyder, and Ms. Feaster for their support that helped us to develop this action plan, and to know that we stand committed with all of you to be able to implement this moving forward pending your action. I do want to open up the floor, if it's all right with Chair Giles, then, to any questions, comments that members of the Regional Council might have.
Yes, thank you, Amy. And let me just reiterate Ms. Feaster's comment that we agree that our MAG staff is great. And on this particular issue, they really demonstrated their competence. And so I just want to add in my congratulations to hers for the way that staff has prepared this issue and brought it forward to us with some real good suggestions and a pathway forward. No pun intended. So having said that, ladies and gentlemen, any questions for Amy or for these presenters? Yes, Mayor Wise.
Thank you, sir. Amy, the work that's been done here is incredible. And I'm looking at Tom as he's smiling, because I know Tom is used to city government and sometimes those wheels turn pretty slowly. But I think that the work that has been done is, it's hard to please all 27 entities that are part of MAG. I do have a couple questions on this, though. This plan looks very similar to plans that have been done in Denver, Sacramento, Alameda County, Los Angeles. And while some of those plans predate this plan, do we have any data of how effective those plans have been? And if you don't have that data, that's fine right now. But if we could get that out, that would be great. Because I think we have, the part that I look at here is a 5-year plan. And I understand there's quarterly updates, and I understand there's reporting things that go along with this. I want to make sure that the plan we're implementing today is a plan that works in the future. And I think there's data that could be used from other jurisdictions and other cities that tell us if we are. So that'd be interesting to kind of see where those cities are at. And I understand there's nuanced differences in each city, but how does that impact with what we're doing here, and how are they doing with reducing homelessness? When we look at the 3 action steps that are outlined in this plan, the biggest one for me is the housing component of it. Because when I look at the statistics that were gathered in April of 2021, a major portion of people who are homeless or on the verge of being homeless, it has to do with some kind of housing, some kind of family issue, or some kind of economic situation that's happened. And I think the housing solution is important to that. We broke ground on 3 workforce housing units in Avondale a couple weeks ago. And I told the story. I have 2 daughters. One of them is actually on the phone right now, or on the call. My oldest daughter graduated from Grand Canyon University, has her bachelor's degree, works in the IT field, makes good money, but she is unable to go out and afford an apartment. She let her mother and I know that she is moving to College Station, Texas, where rents are half of what they are here. And I bring that up to stress the point about workforce housing. Workforce housing has this attachment to it that it's bad, that there's a certain population that uses workforce housing. And the truth is workforce housing is, Lauren Weiss is the face of workforce housing. It's people who are working, who are trying to make it through and trying to thrive in this society, and they are being priced out of the market. So when I think we look at the workforce housing element of the 3 action plans, that's huge for me because I think that would help drastically reduce people who are at risk for this. I love the idea of having individual communities responsible for their own actions, but with support from MAG and partners throughout the region. I think that takes some pressure off of cities that may not be experiencing homelessness like Phoenix does, Mesa, Tempe, and to even an extent Avondale does. So I appreciate you and your team working with that. The one area that I have a concern about is when I look at, even though action number 3 talks about the treatment of substance abuse and mental health, it is passingly mentioned in the rest of the, even if I look at the appendix and I look at what's there, there's not a huge focus on that. And even though those 2 items only make up 10% of homelessness in the Valley, I think those issues can be addressed not as easily as the housing issue, but I think we can make inroads into that. And I use the analogy of this. My wife came to me 2 weeks ago and she said, she went to go start her car and she said, came in and she said, Ken, it won't start. And I went out there and started and it clicked and it clicked and it clicked. So I knew it was either a battery or a starter. And she took my truck. I put a battery charger on that. 2 hours later, it started back up. And I did that for 3 weeks without ever getting a new battery, knowing that the battery was bad. We went out of town for an event with NASCAR. We came back to Sky Harbor Airport and her battery's dead. And your team at Sky Harbor, Kate, is awesome. Okay. And they charged our battery. And my wife said to me, so how much longer are you going to be putting this off? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. It's your car, not mine. But the battery was the solution, right? I took those steps to not fix the problem. And I look at that as the same issue when I look at substance abuse and mental health. We're doing all these other things. But if the true thing is, if the true goal is to eliminate homelessness or reduce it in some matter of 25% in the next 5 years, then taking those approaches that impact the causes of homelessness, especially in the vulnerable communities, in the Black community and the Native American community, where we see where substance abuse plays a bigger role in homelessness. It doesn't make sense for us to keep on charging a dead battery when honestly, the solution's in front of us. So I'd like to see some of the funding, the 5-year funding that Tom talked about that we're going to have running out. How do we use some of that 5-year funding and put into programs that the state has been hesitant to do and the federal government has been hesitant to do? And I would be on board with those solutions if we could get there. So I love the plan. I like the changes that have been made, but those are my key takeaways from this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Giles, this is Mayor Carlett.
Yes, please, Mayor Collett.
First of all, I concur with Meg's staff being absolutely second to none. And Amy, you have brought this plan from absolutely nothing to an incredible finale here. If you want to count the start as a finale, you've really been amazing in getting this to the point where we are right now. And along those lines, I also want to say that I think the plan has really morphed into something that allows us all to contribute, but also allows us all the flexibility to contribute in a way that is most beneficial for our area. So we can be regionally contributing while we are also taking care of what we need to for the residents of our individual cities. So I appreciate that. That is not an easy task to have accomplished, but you did it wonderfully. And I appreciate all of the partners that you brought in to help with that. And so I'm very supportive of this. I just want to say congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Carlett. Other questions or comments at this time before the next agenda item is also very relevant to this, but yes, Mayor Gallego.
Want to thank Mayor Wires for starting us off and you, Mayor Giles, for your leadership in getting us here. You have made making sure our residents of Maricopa County have safe places to live a huge priority. And I think that is a credit and will be part of your legacy as chairmanship. So thank you for caring about those who most need an advocate. It is really admirable. One thing that's important to me in the plan is we're looking at data I think a lot of people here come with a business background, and what you measure is what matters. And that will be very helpful in making good decisions. Again, with 1 out of 5 of our residents in the county being housing vulnerable, this is a huge challenge for all of us. And I worry it will get worse before it gets better, but I'm optimistic if we work together, it can get better. I love the regional focus and collaboration. If you move someone who's experiencing homeless from a park but not into housing, they may go elsewhere. But if we all work together to get someone in a stable situation, they are much more likely to have an outcome. And so that regional collaboration is very, very important. Moving homelessness is not solving it. We want people to be in safe, good accommodations. And so I'm glad that we are working together and saying this really is something that matters to us as a region. Our region needs us to step up, and it's exciting to be here today.
Thank you, Mayor Gallego. Let me just point out that the agenda item we're on right now is just for information and discussion. The next item is the actual plan. I appreciate this agenda item because it demonstrates that really this is a collective approach. The role of MAG is to convene all of the partners that are necessary to come together to address this item. So that the fact that we've had, obviously local governments, regional governments, the county, the nonprofit community, the faith community, all of these are pieces of the puzzle that have to come together for us to have a complete picture as to how we're going to address this. So I'm excited, particularly with the next agenda item. If you don't mind, let's move on to that. This is the Pathways Home Regional Homeless Action Plan for local and tribal governments. As we all know, more than a year of hard work has brought us to this moment. And before I ask staff to begin their presentation, I want to take a moment to thank all of you in this room, virtually and physically. When we started these conversations, we knew it was not going to be easy. This was going to be difficult conversations for many of us. Homelessness is a complex issue with many layers. And yet here we are, joined around one table and one purpose: to reduce homelessness in our region. We're working together because we believe in regionalism and the connections we share and the commitments that we have with one another. So I look forward to hearing the elements of the plan, and more importantly, the perspective of those in this room on how we can best work together to put the plan into action. So now let's ask MAG Executive Director Amy St. Peter and MAG Regional Homeless Project Manager TJ Reed to present the plan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Really appreciate all of your input. Just to put a bit of closure to the last set of comments, in answer to the question about how we looked at other plans, yes, diligently. We've identified early on 37 different national best practices, and we use those to inform the development of this plan. When we look to how other regions have implemented their plans, for example, with Houston, because they had a really solid plan in place already, they were able to coordinate very, very quickly when the COVID relief funding came down from the federal government, and they had an excellent plan in place, and it really helped them in areas that they had not necessarily intended for initially. And then kind of on the other side, when we looked at Santa Clara in California, they have an excellent plan. They developed the plan, and then they were soliciting commitments and support of it. I feel like we're doing this in a better way because we're developing this with your support, and we're seeking your approval of this before the plan is called done, because your feedback is what drives this plan. Your leadership is what brought us to this moment today. And so I think that we're following in some good footsteps nationally. I also think we're blazing some new trails nationally. And that's really to your credit for making this an important issue here throughout the region, and for all of your feedback and your staff's feedback throughout. Also, in terms of the comments about workforce housing, we wholeheartedly agree. There are aspects of this plan that are in motion already. And one of those just earlier this week, it's only midweek, so just yesterday, we met with your PIOs to talk about a regional campaign. And it's a regional campaign to increase acceptance of workforce housing and affordable housing, to reduce the stigma that comes with someone experiencing homelessness. Because we understand that we're all working towards the same goal, but we need support, and we need support from our residents. We need our residents to see each other as neighbors, whether we're housed or unhoused. And so we understand that that need is real, and that need is real throughout the region. And we're taking active steps to mitigate that right now and to address that really fully. And in terms of substance use and mental health, absolutely agree. Those are critical issues among the population experiencing homelessness. And that is That element is integrated into each of these action steps. And so when we're offering housing, it's housing with wraparound services, understanding that to put someone who's actively using in housing might help them to stabilize, but they won't be able to maintain that housing if they're still using. And so we see that sobriety, that stability as a key element to the success of all of these regional efforts. So thank you for that. And thanks to you for your gracious comments about the team here at MAG. We have an amazing team, and I'm deeply thankful to be able to work with them. So I want to thank you. I can't tell you how excited we are to arrive at this day, to be able to offer to you Pathways Home, the Regional Homelessness Action Plan for local and tribal governments. We appreciate your leadership that helped to develop this plan, and we appreciate your partnership in hopefully implementing this plan pending your vote today. This item is for action after an intensive year of listening and learning and better understanding how we can serve you in these efforts, how we can help your local communities in addressing homelessness, and how together we can address homelessness so much better because we're working regionally. And so today we're at that starting point. We're at that pivot, that pivotal moment where we can start to shift from planning to implementation, but implementation in a far different way than what we've been able to do before in the past. And so while each community has entered this work from a different place, I feel like we're positioned to be able to move forward together thanks to your cooperation, your collaboration, and your support. We do share that priority of addressing homelessness on this regional basis. That includes reducing homelessness, but also being able to make sure that people can get help in every community throughout the region, and to be able to support you in providing that support to our residents, both housed and unhoused. Next slide, please. So it takes a lot of different perspectives and participation from throughout the entire region to create a quality regional plan. And we're indebted to you, to all of your feedback, and we're indebted to your staff. They've worked with us hand in glove in order to deliver this plan to you. In particular, I want to thank the Regional Homelessness Coordination Team. Your staff are instrumental in identifying the most viable action steps then for this region. I also want to thank our community partners, such as those that you've heard from today, with the Arizona Department of Housing, Access, and the Violet's Health Foundation. Also want to extend a special appreciation to the Regional Collaborative on Homelessness. They've been meeting with us weekly, if not daily, over the past 14 months to develop this plan and to be able to integrate all of your priorities, your ideas into the fabric of this plan. And I do want to take a moment to thank our internal team here at MAG. Our homelessness planning team is extremely talented and diligent and very excited to serve you. And they've worked extremely hard to develop this plan. And they're going to work even harder to implement this plan in close partnership with you. We are absolutely indebted to our regional analytics team, to our policy and government relations team, to our communications staff, to IT and to fiscal, and to Eric for all of his support throughout all of these efforts. We're grateful to work alongside each and every one of you. Next slide, please. The action steps then fall into three main areas of activity. We shared these with you back in October. We were grateful for the feedback and the direction that you received at that meeting. We've taken that feedback and we have revised the plan accordingly. And we'll be sharing what those changes were in the next two slides. Next slide, please. The changes then to the plan generally fall into one of two categories. Through our 27 different meetings with you and your managers, we talked a lot about the plan. We talked about how we can support your local efforts, how we can support your participation in these regional efforts. All of that requires resources. And so we received direction during those meetings and also at the regional council meeting to help strengthen the way that we talked about these regional resources in the action plan. The changes that you see on the screen before you represent clarifications as opposed to major shifts or changes in the plan. So it still remains the same that we'll be inviting all local and tribal governments to lend their support to this plan by providing financial and/or in-kind contributions. Each community will be invited to determine for themselves what those contributions look like. We absolutely stand ready to help you to identify new opportunities for making that happen. We will be requesting letters of commitment and then being able to reflect that information back to you really for two reasons. The first is to thank you. It's a thank you for your contributions to these regional efforts. And the second one is that communities can inspire each other for how they might further contribute to these regional resources now and in the future. Next slide, please. The second area of revisions was around data. Data has been and continues to drive these efforts, and we did receive some requests to deepen the data in the plan, and we have done so. This includes adding a map about evictions because evictions are greatly impacting our region as many others across the country. We also added some trend data about some important subpopulations within homelessness. That includes older adults, veterans, and we also added in youth as a critical element within our homeless population. And we want to make sure that all of this data is available to you on an ongoing basis. So we will continue to update Hand Up. That is a homelessness assets and needs data for unified planning tool, thanks to our RAD team, our regional analytics team. We'll continue to keep this updated as a service to you as our member agency so that you can use this in your local planning. We'll also continue to use it for our regional planning so that we might better understand where are the opportunities in our region to help people stabilize more quickly, more efficiently. We continue to dive into the data. At the October Regional Council meeting, we were asked to provide a cost estimate for how much it will take to fully implement this plan. So we have conducted that analysis with the benefit of your staff lending their expertise and their data. And I'd like to turn the presentation now over to my colleague, TJ Reed, who was a point person on conducting that analysis. TJ?
Mr. Chair, members of the council, it's good to see you all today, and I can't make any excuses for like not unmuting or putting on my camera. So next slide, please. So we wanted to clarify a few things with you about the plan thus far. And so with the 15 action steps that are under those 3 categories, we wanted to let you know how they fall in terms of funding. So we have 6 of them that are fully funded and do not need any additional funds, 3 partially, 1 cost to be determined. That is for the regional education campaigns, right? There may be costs associated with it depending on what you all decide to do in the pathway forward. And then 5 require no funding, which is either commitments or in kind that will get those action steps across the board. Next slide, please. And so I think one thing that this council requested in our last time we discussed was, can we look at the costs? Can we look at what we have? Can we look at what is needed? And so I'm going to share a little bit about where we're at right now with the plan. And so you can see these are huge figures on the board right now and will consistently be updated and changed as we progress over the next 5 years. So a quick note about our methodology here. So we have committed to 25% reductions in this plan. And that was really based on the projected needs from our homeless management information system. We did not want to just base this off of nothing. We wanted to use the data that is currently available in our community to understand what our projections are year over year. And so as we go forward with this plan, both the needs and our assets will be analyzed and updated quarterly, but also yearly of understanding how we need to update this. As we all are aware, things that implement are going to impact the numbers, and then our population continues to grow steadily. So that will also impact our numbers. So for us to just say, this is the number, let's stick to it and not look at it for the next 5 years would not be effective. And so that is why we really are focused on continual, and one of the words that was used in our conversations was, this is a working document. Yes, it's before you for approval, but we can't set it and forget it. This is something that we constantly need to not only be updating, but working together to resolve new and different things that are coming up. I did want to clarify too, that over 90% of these costs are related to investments in temporary and permanent housing. The rest of the costs are associated with all the rest of the plan. And so that really tells you to I think many of the points that have been brought up, that a plan without housing and sufficient investment in that would not be an effective plan at all. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of information on here, so I'll just briefly touch on it, but we wanted to share the activities that are fully funded, because when you look at something as substantial as $109 million, we would be remiss to not give a shout out for this group in the sense that this is an amazing thing that we have come to with all of the bullet points on the right, indicating things that have been funded fully or partially funded. This is incredible from both a commitment from the local and municipal governments all the way to our regional partners, some of which who we're discussing earlier today. We do want to call out specifically a few of these action items were funded by the city of Phoenix and by Maricopa County. And then many of you have participated in implementing new temporary or permanent housing beds. Next slide, please. But with with the positivity and with us being able to celebrate our successes and the things that have been done, we have to focus on the things that need to be done as well. And so the gaps are listed here. They're really focused, and 100% of the gap is within the temporary and permanent housing areas. There are 237 temporary housing units and 117 permanent housing units that are needed as a part of this first investment. And the one thing that we wanted to share right off the bat was that there are items here that are pending and ready for refinement. So first, we're still collecting data from some of you in the room and over the phone. Projects are pending right now. So there are multiple conversations being had, and we've had conversations with some of you where things are happening now, but details are not cemented to be able to share specificity, right? We can't say there's 100 units now approved here, but there are conversations that are happening that may likely lead to specific units that will be added to this plan later on. And as Amy referenced, with Director Simplot bringing together multiple funders, there is a substantial interest from not only local funders, but regional funders to support this plan. So the main part that we wanted to express to this council is that you are not alone in any individual action, and that you have the regional backing, not only from a technical assistance side where you can reach out to us anytime, but pairing that with many interested funders who would be willing to bridge gaps that exist, or do an example like with the City of Phoenix and Mercy Care, where there were units put up, but there were support services funded by a different source. So that is extremely exciting. And the other thing that we wanted to mention is that this constantly will be revised for new resource allocations and changes in need. So this is not just, okay, if we all just throw in 23 million, we're good for the next 5 years. As we quarterly review this and yearly go over this, those needs and assets will be continually updated. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the next steps here after this council votes on the plan. And so next slide. So first of all, we wanted to share that the management committee and our Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care both unanimously recommended this for approval to this council. This item will be offered, as has been referenced already today, for your vote. We have really worked hard, and I've appreciated seeing you, some of you in person that we've met virtually, to hear, address, and really integrate your priorities into this plan. This is not a MAG plan by MAG staff standards. This is a plan that was developed with and for this entire council and all of the member agencies. So moving forward, though, we look forward to diligently listening some more and working closely with you to implement this plan. Progress on the plan will be tracked, and I think that was referenced already, but we want to really emphasize this as this is something very vital to us, is that we actually are making progress and working together to identify how things are going along the way. All right, and then the next slide, please. An exciting opportunity, and we really hope that all of you are able to join us at 1 o'clock today at Urban Living on 2nd Avenue. This is an affordable housing property that is run by Native American Connections. There are some of the details here that I won't list out verbally, but all of you are welcome. And I think for us, the importance of as many of you showing up as possible is really reflecting the regional priority that is being made from this group, that we're all here together. This is not just an us thing or a one city thing. We're coming together to really make a dent in an issue that we're all aware of. And with that, next slide, please. And so we wanted to reference too that today is really a historic moment, and that this is the first time that we have all rallied together around a regional plan related to homelessness. This would not have happened without your leadership and expertise. And so we wanted to just thank you again for your time. I'm sure you'll get sick of the thank yous today, but we'll say it one more time, that you provided us over the last year. We look forward to strengthening the regional response. And with that, Mr. Chairman, we'll give it back to you.
Well, thank you, Amy and TJ. council, are there questions for staff regarding this presentation or the plan itself? All right, any of our folks on Zoom, we see any virtual hands up there? Everything good? If you don't mind, I do have a few seconds of comments to share. I recall when I was a first mayor talking about this subject, I used to say homelessness is a problem in my city and in my community. And as time has, the last 7 years have unfolded, I'm now more tempted to say homelessness is the problem in my community and in our region. And that's because as I witness what's going on around us in our neighboring regions and cities, when I visit those communities, I see mile after mile of homeless encampments. And I see crowded streets of homeless people. And I'm seeing the beginning of that in my community and in my region. So I think that we all are quick to point out how quick Maricopa County is growing. And we should continue to point that out for a lot of important reasons. But it's also true that we have the fastest growth rate of homelessness in the country. And so, there's two ends to that stick. And so this is an important step forward. I think we all need to realize, as I indicated earlier, that this is a collaborative response, but that we have a critical role to play in leading in our communities and in convening all of the stakeholders that need to come together, us included, to be a part of this solution. I am proud that I think now more than ever, we are working well together as a region. If we look at the efforts that we've recently gone through on the Prop 400 extension, the efforts that MAG has contributed to coming up with a housing plan and a strategy for getting that in front of the voters, I think we all ought to feel proud that we've worked so well together. And I think homelessness, we have to realize, is an issue very much like transportation. We have to approach it regionally. We have to retool MAG to be not focused exclusively on transportation, but to take on other similar issues that are regional challenges as well. Homelessness being a great example of one of those. So having said that, again, I'm proud of the work that's gone into this, and looking forward to this being, again, one of the topics that we discuss on a more regular basis. Mayor Ortega.
Thank you. 20 years ago, I served on the continuum of care in the MAG group. I was city councilman at the time, and we were looking at bundling the nonprofit and distribution of monies directly to needs other than housing. And that's been a continuous effort by the county. This is a huge step forward because we're really looking at direct contributions that will hopefully use best practice. Yes, there have been stumbles that can be viewed nationally or in certain regions of the country, but it's our job to meet the challenge that we have. So we have three things. We have the challenge, the choice, we're making the choice now, and then the action. And with that, I'm happy to move for the approval of the Pathways Home, Regional Homeless Action for Local and Tribal Governments as presented.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Ortega. We have a motion to move forward. A second.
I'll second it.
A couple of folks, including Mayor Wilson and Mayor Hartke, have both seconded that motion. Any additional discussion before we proceed with the vote? All right, for those who are present for the meeting, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Thank you. Let's do a roll call of those participating virtually.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Regional Council. I will go down the list of members by member agency. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Mayor Hermosillo.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Mayor Carlat.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Pereira.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Lavalde.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Orsborn.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Schoaf. Supervisor Hickman? Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you. The motion carries.
Well, thank you. And again, that's, I hope we all, let's give voting might be the easiest part of this.
That might be.
That's right. Now, the next agenda item is to talk about next steps in the implementation of our regional response to homelessness. Like I said, today's the beginning. At the beginning of the meeting, this is just the beginning. What we do from this point on has the potential to transform our response to homelessness. We know what needs to be done. Your vote today demonstrates the dedication to make this happen. Our MAG Regional Homeless Project Manager, TJ Reed, joins us again to talk about how we will continue working together to implement the action plan. It's important that we remain focused on assessing our impact, continuing to listen intently to each other, and making any changes needed to ensure our collective success. So again, this item is on the agenda for information, discussion, and possible action. TJ.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the council. And I'll keep this brief. We're really focused on 3 areas here. One is the reporting, which we had talked about reporting to this council on a quarterly basis, not only with what is happening associated with the plan, but sharing information around homelessness need in the county from a data perspective. So understanding what our homelessness is looking like currently, as well as the progress towards each of these action steps. So I think I'll go through each of these and then we'll allow some time for discussion related to if you have any other recommendations, because I think for us, we're going to share some ideas here, but are looking to you as what you would feel most effective in carrying out this plan. So one would be quarterly meetings with this particular group to share the needs and assets and tracking our way through the plan. And then the second would be we met with our regional coordination team. And then there are also multiple committees, the human services technical committees. We have multiple committees under MAG. We do not want to necessarily create another meeting. I'm sure that all of us are meetinged out at this point. And so for us to integrate this within the structures, but also doing what needs to be done, right? And so we're looking to you to see if there's interest in continuing with the regional coordination team meetings. And that kind of frequency would be decided by you all in the group. It doesn't have to be at the frequency it was prior. And then lastly, really having a mechanism for input. So where would input come into this process as we're implementing? So would this group want to really put this on agendas and discuss how things should be adjusted as we go forward on a yearly basis, on a quarterly basis, et cetera. And so with that, I'll give it back to you, Mr. Chair, with those kind of 3 topic areas. If there's any questions, discussions, feedback on how best we can work with you all to actually drive this plan forward.
Thank you, TJ. Do we have questions or comments from the board? Mayor Weiss.
Mr. Chair, thank you. TJ, I think for me, yes, I'd want to have a discussion more than just on a yearly basis. When I'm on page 44 of the presentation, Appendix C. When I look at some of the data that's there, some of it is reflective of April of 2021 when it comes to jobs, rent, things along that line. And I think in the short time from April until December, we've seen a marked change in the job market. We've seen a marked change in housing costs, median income. So I think having what you're talking about updated on a yearly basis and having those discussions, I think to me is important. I think the data can get away from us and we're playing catch up trying to make our numbers work with what's actually happening on the ground. So for me, I'd like to do more, even though meetinged out is the correct term, more meetings than fewer meetings. Every city here, every town here, every county, Maricopa County has made a huge investment, not only in money, but in blood, sweat, and tears to make this plan come to fruition and work. And so I'm okay with quarterly updates on this. And I like the fact you said it earlier in your presentation that this is a working document. To me, that's key. And I think when I look at other cities that are, and I use Alameda County, and it's not a dig on Alameda County, but when I study their report and what they're facing right now, their data has not caught up to the reality on the ground. And I don't ever want that to happen here. We've spent too much time on this project. And so if that input helps you from my standpoint, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Wise. And Mr. Chair, members of the council, I think that's exactly right. And one of the other things that I would just reference here is we've worked through the homeless team to be able to produce a quarterly synthesis of what is happening actively on the homeless need side of things. And I think what we would want to do is time that with this quarterly meeting so that you would all have the updated or as updated as possible numbers so that we are tracking as close to real time as possible.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke.
I'm in favor of longer meetings rather than more meetings, quite honestly. So I don't think any of us really wants to gather more, but concerning synthesizing this material into what we're doing as much as possible, I think would be good. And I do know that I'm assuming we're going to be leading a point in time count again, that's going to be rather telling as we kind of kick off this meeting, just to see how, as Mayor Giles mentioned, the growth of the county is also being reflective in the growth of homelessness. And to me, that's going to be rather telling, and that's probably going to give us the better baseline immediately to see where we're working from and how do we kind of capture this. In some ways, we've all been involved every year and probably looking at public safety pensions, PSPRS, and many of us have worked hard to kind of delve into that. And for years, as much as we put into it, it seems like the numbers have just continued to go up. So I'm expecting, honestly, to see the same thing here. And that's not to discourage us, but just to mean that the problem right now, the wave is still coming in. And I'm excited for us tackling this and keeping us as updated as much as possible. But I still look at probably that data as giving us this new initiative, the new baseline of where we're going to be working from. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Hartke. Other comments or questions? Mayor Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm actually happy to make a motion that we direct staff to follow through on the recommendations as stated.
Thank you very much. And I think just to reiterate what's been said, that those recommendations include at a minimum a quarterly report of kind of a dashboard of how things are progressing in each of our communities. Thank you. We have a motion to accept that recommendation from staff by Mayor Woods. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Wilson. We have a motion and a second. We'll do a voice vote for those here in the room. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Let's do a roll call vote for those attending virtually.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Regional Council. I will go down the list of members by member agency. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Mayor Hermosillo.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Carlott.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Pereira.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Lavault.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Osborne.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Schoaf. Supervisor Hickman. Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. And thanks again to everyone who's worked so hard to bring us to this point. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Regional Council. Just a couple other things. I'm a member of the Urban Land Institute Advisory Board in Arizona. And just this morning, we had our meeting and former Mayor Paul Johnson was there talking about specifically an education campaign. They have $500,000 committed already and looking for more on the whole issue of workforce housing, affordable housing, and homelessness. And so once again, I'm going to reach out to Paul. ULI, those that don't know, represent 1,000 or so companies related to development here in the Valley, including John Bradley from Brookfield, Charlie Freerichs from Catellus and Novus Innovation Center. Very well connected. They understand the issue, and I guess that's why I want to bring it up. The industry understands we have to do something to provide a much more affordable workforce housing, or our economic development efforts here will be snuffed out. And so they're very concerned about that. And so the private sector, I think, is also primed, not just on the homeless side, but in terms of workforce housing and affordable housing too. And so I think there's a great opportunity for synergy between the public and private sector on this topic too. Thank you.
Mayor Weiss.
Eric, as you comment on that, I think it's also important when we look at where that housing may be located. That housing has to be located where people who utilize that housing can use transportation to get to their jobs. They may not have their own vehicles, but there has to be access to employment. There has to be access to doctor services and things that go along with that type of thing. So as we have those discussions and as we move forward with that, I know you're talking about an information campaign, but as we go forward with those developers, we need to have that discussion. Where are these facilities going to be located to optimize the efforts that we're trying to do here?
I love the fact that word has gotten out that MAG is who is going to be coordinating the efforts in this area. And so the Paul Johnsons and all the other puzzle pieces in our region that are willing partners and have resources to contribute to this. I think once the word needs to get out that, like transportation, MAG is taking leadership on this regional issue, as we are the obvious folks to quarterback this issue. So that's great that this is starting, and I look forward to this being, again, one of our legacy issues as an organization. So thank you for sharing that, Eric. All right, next item on our agenda are requests by a regional council member for an item on our future agenda. Any requests, council? How about the folks online? Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Gallego.
It would be wonderful to get a chance to see some of the new data that was added to the plan, particularly on evictions would be of interest to me. I'm afraid that is going to be a major issue for our region, but also would be interested. I think there are a lot of people here who are very passionate about serving veterans. And now that we're adding that data, it would be wonderful to have that conversation.
Amy, I see Amy said, and we've got a thumbs up from Amy on that. Okay. Council, any other requests for additional information or additional items on future agendas? All right. Item 8 on our agenda then are comments or announcements from the membership. Any comments? Mayor Weiss?
Mayor Giles, I will keep it brief. I had a chance to travel to Nashville last week to meet with NASCAR as a follow-up to the championship race weekend, and got to meet the gentleman who handles scheduling and strategic events for NASCAR. And they were beyond happy with what the response was from the entire valley when it came to the championship race. Not only were they happy, but their broadcast partners, NBC and Fox, were ecstatic at the ratings, obviously, but also at the venues and just the way that the entire event looked on TV and the response that they got. So we are hoping to have an answer in the next few months of bringing the race here on a more permanent basis. Then knock on wood and hope that happens. But just thank you to everyone involved, everyone in the region. It was, and they were cognizant of that. It wasn't just a Avondale or West Valley. They were cognizant that it was everyone in the valley who participated in this and the excitement that they saw everywhere. So just a thank you to all the partners throughout the valley.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mayor Weiss, on a great event. Mayor Ortega.
I just want to draw attention that the council is aware, of course, we will go back to our own entities and look at the funding cycles and such. And that may take a while to do, and certainly channel those discussions on our future agendas individually.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega. Other announcements?
Mr. Chair, Jerry Wires here.
Yes, Mayor Wires.
Yeah, I just wanted everyone to know, and this has a little to do with Meg, but mainly I just thank the kindness of the folks here in Arizona, specifically here in the Valley. I had a gentleman reach out to me almost a year and a half ago asking, could we help or figure out a way to help the small town of Sonoita, Mexico. They were in dire need of an ambulance, and I was able to work some magic. It only took a year and a half, but we will be presenting an ambulance to the mayor of Sonoita tomorrow here in Glendale at Squirrel Ranch Park. I wish that we would have known that the governor of Sonora was coming the following week, because it would have been great to have him at the same event. But I'm real proud to let everybody know that we were able to secure an ambulance for that small town, and we'll be presenting that. And I think, again, it just shows the friendship, the unity between Arizona and our neighbors to the south.
Thank you, Jerry. Any other announcements? Yes, Mayor Harkey.
I would just be remiss to not say, we want to wish you all a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. So all around.
we see your tie?
There you go. We're there.
All right. Very good. I think you won the contest. Yeah, there's a few. All right.
Les has got one.
Thank
Okay.
you. All right.
That's why they put us together.
Quite a fashion show. Thank you.
The happy time.
I feel like, and I appreciate Mayor Weiss reminding me of the obvious. One of, I think everyone's favorite mayor is Georgia Lord, who is not with us today. Georgia, as if you don't know, is recovering from some injuries. And so in the spirit of the season and just out of our affection for her, I hope we're all remembering her in our prayers and thoughts for a speedy recovery. We look forward to her returning. Are any other additional announcements or comments to share with us? If not, let me repeat what you heard earlier, that we hope that you will join us for a press event celebrating our action today and inviting all residents to give the gift of real change, not spare change. The event will be held at 1 o'clock this afternoon at the Native American Connections Urban Living Center on 2nd Avenue. And so we hope to see you there. That concludes our business for this meeting, and it is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.